Okay, welcome back. Last topic under the subtopic under the topic of displays is about color. So color coding and the psychology of color. And just to kind of an aside here, this doesn't come from the text or anything, just some material that I've put together over the years. All right, so first of all, the concept of color is a very useful property to use in display design. There are ways to code things according to color. Sometimes those codings, sometimes those codings are based on, cultural relationships. So, for example, red for hot, blue for cold. That's something we had to learn at some point. And most cultures might represent hot and cold with those two colors, but not everyone. The color coding is also a nice way to stand out from a background and to attract attention, essentially. Also, color can convey an emotional response. And my examples here of the tough looking home jerseys of Texas A&M, this dark and mysterious and threatening and menacing sort of look. And then, of course, pink, this nice nurturing maternal sort of color doesn't instill the same level of fear or the same aggression. So there's emotional content that gets conveyed by color as well. Okay, so some colors, have a universally consistent meaning. I mentioned already the red for hot, blue for cold, red, yellow, and green for traffic lights. Those are fairly universal. Again, we had to learn them at some point, but across Earth, these are fairly universal codings. Some are associated with a particular domain or population. So in hospital contexts, usually they will use blue or green. I think green is usually like a heightened level of cleanliness. I'm not really sure, but these colors mean this is a sterile material, which is of course important in hospitals. So blues could be sterile. Some places green is sterile, or I don't know how you can get more sterile than sterile, but in each case, these are what the colors are representing there. And then sometimes you have apparently opposite color codings based on different domains. So for example, liquid process control, red would be, a valve is closed, and so there is not fluid moving through. Green is open, fluid's moving. And then for electronics manufacturing, it's the opposite. So when current is flowing, they color it red. So then that would be, hot, an active circuit. And green is the circuit is not live. There's no flow of electricity. So kind of the opposite implications there for those color codings. And you might imagine somebody works between those two domains or in each of them. And this could be a cause for confusion at times. The Christmas tree effect is it's a nice buzzword term. And this comes from a couple of, quotes from major disasters where I think there are examples of, an operator saying, well, the whole alarm panel just lit up like a Christmas tree. And so what this is describing is when you have color as the main indicator of a system state. And you may have, like, imagine again with, if this is a valve in a liquid processing, you might have a whole bunch of these open and closed under different configurations that don't necessarily mean any sort of, that could be during normal operations. But if you are looking out over a display of many of these and you just see things lit up like a Christmas tree, there isn't any real ability to direct attention to where there's a problem. So it's difficult to find, okay, where's their problem? Now, if instead everything is one color when it's in good operating mode, and then when there's a problem, it changes to the other unique color. Now that one unique color would stand out from the background, it would be salient. But if the displays look like this, you're not gonna easily see that, oh no, that one right there should be green and it's not, so that's a problem. It's gonna be much harder to see where the problems are. So, and then this is 3 Mile Island is one example of where we've heard this sort of thing. And we talked about this already a little in this course, and we talked about how the light indicators were, part of the clue that something was going wrong. And then, hey, the whole thing, when stuff starts to melt down, we're getting all kinds of different changes in these alerts, and we end up just looking at a Christmas tree, and it doesn't help direct us toward, well, here's the source of the problem. So again, the takeaway here is color coding is great. Just beware the extreme of color coding, because if you're using this many colors this frequently, it doesn't, you lose the advantage of directing attention and grouping things with color. Other considerations, this is going to resonate with the absolute, avoiding absolute distinctions from this, I think it's the second display design principle. Absolute judgment of hues is a problem. Remember I mentioned, okay, red, yellow, green, blue, purple. I can make those distinctions, but once you start getting to, is that teal or aquamarine, in an absolute sense, I'm not going to do a very good job in distinguishing those. So no more than 5 to 6 colors in a display. There's another reference to the magical number 7 plus or minus 2, 5. Okay. All right. Don't use color coding if it is not needed. So, hey, let's just make all of this look like one color, just so it makes it look good. This will potentially have people thinking a little bit more deeply for no reason, about what's the relationship among these things. Also color. So when we pick dimensions to map data to, I'm going to talk about additive and substitutive dimensions at some point, either in this class. If I don't in this class, it's in 635, we talk at length about them. But if I'm trying to convey qualities or quantities of something, I may or may not want to use color. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so now color is nice. It helps me distinguish different levels, and I can actually see kind of a continuum here. I can assume that the deeper orange is similar to, but not quite the same as the lesser orange. I can assume that there's some gradation here, but if I don't have a key that's telling me, hey, here's exactly what each of these mean, like this here on the right, it's much harder for me to do like a quantitative comparison. I can tell that this represents rainfall, but I don't know if it's more rain here or more rain here. I think probably it's more rain here because I don't think it ever rains in El Paso. But this is the challenge that we have. So color as a dimension, hue as a dimension, doesn't naturally communicate quantity. Color as a dimension is great for qualities. Okay, so for example, desert region, I don't know, tropical region, something like that. So if they're qualitative differences, colors work great. But if I'm trying to determine, is this representing a larger number than this, it doesn't quite work as well. And not as well as some other representations like shading or using different sorts of gradient patterns. Okay. There's our key. So we need the key in order to be able to make sense of this graph. All right, good. So now I've got a couple of slides talking about emotional relationships with color and the psychology that is, around it. So I'm wearing my University of Iowa sweatshirt. This is my alma mater. These are the football team that I root for. And so one of the legendary coaches at the University of Iowa is Hayden Fry. This is Hayden Fry. And Hayden Fry was a psychology major. You can't major in football, so he's I want to say he's a psychologist, but he was a psychology major and a football coach. But he understood these principles, right? And one of the emotional responses to color you can play very well into games of aggression, right? So I already showed you the Aggie home uniform, and Hayden Fry also said, hey, my team, I'm going to make them as intimidating as possible. And so he actually did some tweaks and changed the look of their home jerseys to be darker. And also he recognized, well, then, pink It makes me think of my mother, or of being nurtured and cared for. These are emotional responses that go with, like, a certain color pink. So here's Iowa's home jerseys, and here is the locker room. And this is, to this day, what the opponent's locker room looks like, including all of the porcelain in the bathrooms, are all this very calm, neutral, maternal, like makes me think of my mother, shades of pink. So this is going to get me probably not in a very in the right move to be an aggressive monster. All right, there you go. Red versus blue. Red is seen as more aggressive, as more powerful, and so a lot of times, if you see a representation of vehicles, you would say the red is the aggressive bad guy. And in fact, I think this is actually not statistically quite true, but it's close to being so, that red cars get pulled over more often, for speeding, whether or not they are. And there's a lot behind that, but just recognize the stereotype here of simply painting your car a different color makes it seem like it's a faster vehicle. And that's, again, the effect of color on our perception. These colors also can simulate, bodily functions, stimulate bodily functions like hunger. So you'll recognize here how the colors of red and yellow are used in so many, food logos and recognizable logos here. And essentially, if you haven't eaten in a bit and you're looking at this slide, you're thinking, I could eat something. That's your body responding emotionally in some ways to the red and yellow that stimulate thinking of hunger, thinking of food. Politicians know this very well. And so what you see here on the right are four former recent presidents, all wearing their red power ties. This is a very effective way to tell the world that you're a leader, that you are, potentially someone to not be trifled with. You are the alpha, so to speak, alpha male or female. And so that color red comes across. And of course, each of our presidents have some very wise, wardrobe specialists, and they'll say, hey, you're giving your big speech today, time for the power tie. So that's what red does, right? Some of the other associations, blue is tranquility and calmness. I've also seen blue go with trustworthiness. So for example, if you look at an ATM display, pay attention, and at least the ones that I've interacted with, this is the case, they're blue, the background is blue. And if you think about, I'm doing something that I need a high degree of trust. I need to trust that this machine is going to give me my money that I'm needing in an ATM. And so that blue background has been found to keep people a little more docile, a little more agreeable with the machine they're interacting with. So very, very subtle design feature, but can make a big difference, in terms of how humans react to it. Green, freshness, health, right? If you can, look out the window and see green things, there are some psychological benefits. You have these, more positive sorts of outlook on life, and you have some sort of nature view within your. If I had a potted plant right here, this would actually have a noted psychological benefit in terms of me thinking healthily and thinking, about freshness. Purple, luxury. Oops, sorry. Let me just pick another one. A few of these here. We already talked about pink as being soft and actually nurturing. I said maternal several times because it is something people generally would associate with their mother. I guess I don't really know why. Another one, a couple other ones here. So the white, purity. So if you think of, this is interesting, weddings in the United States and in a lot of other Western cultures, the idea is the bride tends to wear white. And the idea there is conveying purity of the bride. Interesting cultural differences, though. So I know that in India, a bride may wear red. And I don't know if that's a power thing or if it's just a cultural association. So there's cultural overridings of these emotional responses as well. And then we talked about with black, it's mystery. It's, it's a potential, if it's a football player, it's a potential threat, right? It's something that that is powerful and dangerous. Okay. Now, a couple of cool side studies here. So looking at pills, so medications here, they've actually found, there's quite a bit of psychology that goes into the manufacturing of these pills that will, number one, sell them. But the really interesting thing here is their effectiveness actually is modulated by the color of the pill. Now that sounds crazy, but this group did a study here, so Crane et al., and they were looking at the effectiveness of sleeping pills. And so they had a certain sleeping pill, medicine dose, and they either colored the pill blue or they colored it orange. So same chemical properties, just a non-affecting color coding. Okay. And people who would take each of these and then go home and they fall asleep with them, I suppose. So the blue pill takers, on average, fell asleep 30 minutes faster and slept 30 minutes longer than the orange pills. So again, exactly the same medicine. Just, am I taking a blue pill and I can see that it's blue? So it has that sort of psychological, manifestation on my health. So that's pretty interesting, right? And now this makes sense why most sleeping pills will use this calm blue tranquility sort of emotional association. Another study, humans would be given placebos, so that means they're sugar pills. There's no medication in them, and if it was blue or pink, this had an effect on how people responded. So this is actually showing, oh yeah, there's an actual medical effect, at least when it comes to sleeping pill effectiveness on the color. Here, even if there's no medication at all, the blue of that pill makes people feel, less alert, makes them feel sleepy and calm. And not the same thing for if it were pink. Now, one interesting factor is with this study, they actually found one particular group, they didn't get the same effect, and it was Italian participants from Italy. And so why might that be? Oh, it's because the Italian national football team is blue. So the blue color has, again, a cultural overriding influence, in different parts of the world. So that this would be energizing. Blue would be energizing, for some Italian participants. That's it. That's the end of topic 4. I hope you enjoyed it. Tune in for topic 5, controls.